Being an entrepreneur is one of the most difficult things in the world. We were in that pre kind of recession in 2007 where the companies weren't growing. I had to learn insane resilience to work without any resources.
Avetis Antaplyan left a high-paying job to launch HireCloud, a technology recruiting and consulting firm now trusted by Hulu, Uber, Tinder, Sony, and others. His story reveals how risk, resilience, and authentic leadership create lasting success in a world transformed by AI.
You don't know who you are until you leave that industry and you go, oh my God, I can fly at a smaller company. Sometimes you're a small company person stuck in a big company.
How did you guys start to fill up your pipeline with customers?
We did it through mushrooming and, with existing clients.
Let's talk AI. How's AI shaping how you run your company and how you're actually serving and helping clients?
Twofold. I would say about
What would it take for you to walk away from a secure, high-paying corporate job, knowing your income will be cut in half overnight? Most people don't ever consider it. Avidas did it on purpose. And in the process, he built HireCloud into one of the most respected tech recruiting firms in the game. In this conversation, we'll go deep into his mindset that gave him the courage to take the leap, the brutal realities of the first year, the moment he knew it would work, and how he built a business grounded in vision, values, and resilience. If you're sitting in a job right now and wondering if you got what it takes to make the jump, this is your blueprint. So welcome, Avidas.
Thank
Welcome.
you so much. Thank you so much, guys. That was a hell of an intro. Appreciate it.
Hopefully we did it justice. So take us back, that exact moment that you said, bye-bye 9 to 5, and you knew right away that paycheck is gone and income cut in half. What was your mind going through? How did you take the leap?
I think what he means is where you under the influence of anything.
Yeah, right. Was I actually hallucinating right now? Like I am right now after being sick for
vacation were you on?
right? The way it worked out is I was at a great company, Kaplan, treated really well. I was doing good work, being promoted, growing all the time. But we were in that pre kind of recession in 2007. No one knew it, but we were all kind of in this weird era, right? Where the companies weren't growing and this, companies were just making a bunch of shakeups. And, I was in line to be like the next vice president, but instead they scrambled and they created this thing, this weird layer, and that wasn't part of the conversation. And then what made it worse is they brought in a guy that I didn't like and I didn't respect. He would talk shit about people behind their backs, and he would talk to me about other people, and I called him out, and he didn't like it, and I said, I don't like that, man. I've known that dude for 4 years. He's given everything he has for the company. I don't appreciate it. I didn't like him, so I had already decided like this isn't for me anymore, and as much fun as I had, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this red tape, these like corporate nonsense anymore. I have to go work either at an entrepreneurial environment or create my own. But while I'm doing that, I'm obviously going through executive search firms, going into other like for-profit organizations and feeling those things out, and just wasn't hitting, it wasn't hitting my heart. And had I was at the very end of a process. I was like, all right, I got these two offers. I got to pick one and go with it. It is what it is. I'm married at this point, so I gotta provide, right? And then one of the women that worked for me as the director says, hey, there's one guy I'd like you to meet for me. I guess one of her customers actually went up to her and said, hey, I'm trying to rebuild my business. Do you know anyone that? And she said, actually, I think my boss is on his way out. I can do an intro. So she tells me this. I said, I can't, Jessica. Like it's too late. I got to decide. I promised these people. Please just do it for me. I already promised the meeting. So I met this guy, Jeff, great guy. And I'm like, yeah, this business is a mess, but it's got good bones. Could this be the thing that's not the corporate thing that I don't want? Let's do it. And so weirdest decision ever. I told my mom, she said, you're crazy. Don't do it. I told my brothers and it's like, what is wrong with you? Why would you do that? So on paper, logically, it made zero sense. Zero. No sense at all. And then my wife was the only one that was like, look, you always do what you do anyway. I don't know why you're asking all these people advice. You don't listen to anybody. You're gonna do it anyway, and you've never done this wrong, so just do it." I was like, "All right, that I think that's a yes, right? That's a yes. It's my wife. That's a yes. That's enough for me." So I went to go rebuild this small kind of company that was struggling a little bit. I had been successful in the past, but just had never recovered from the last recession, whatever it was. So I went in, but I said, "Look, I'm only gonna come here if you get out of the way and let me build this thing." And it's like, who has the guts to say that? As a 26-year-old guy going up to a much older, much wiser guy than you to tell him to get out of his own business's way so you can rebuild it. I thought that was really funny. Looking back as a grown person now,
Yeah.
the gumption on this guy, right? This guy Avidas. So he said, "Yeah, it's exactly what I need." It's like, I'm like, "What? Okay." So we go do it. Things are going well, and then the rug gets pulled under us, the 2008 recession. So we struggle like hell for two years, and then we start building and building and building, and then I became an owner in that company. But then eventually I was like, "Hey, I got to go build my own thing. Got to build my own thing. I want my own thing," and that's where HireCloud came about. And Jeff was nice enough to come on and continue to help and be a great uh, kind of great person for me to bounce ideas off of. We ran the company together. We scaled it. So that's where we're at. Actually, you guys would be the first to know, well, at least outside the company, that he's retiring and all that, which is awesome. But we did build two companies together. And so here we are.
If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, be sure to click on the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click on the bell. It lets YouTube know you want to support the This Is the Way podcast, and it helps spread the word, and we greatly appreciate it. And now, back to the episode.
That's awesome. So just to make sure I'm following right. When you left, you ended up joining his company, but
Yes.
then he ended up joining the company you went
Yes.
to build afterwards. Okay,
Yes.
got it.
It was
And
actually quite funny conversation because I said, "I'm gonna do this." He goes, "Great, I'll come with you." And I laughed. He's like, "I'm serious." I said, "Why?" I'm really confused. He goes, "Let's just do it together." It was a weird thing. And I had so much respect for him, and I didn't feel right leaving this thing we had built together, but I didn't
yeah,
feel it wasn't my baby, right? That
yeah,
was his baby, and I had done what I was supposed to do, which is rebuild it. It was successful. It was profitable. Cool. Now I want to go build something more scalable, more tech oriented, more national versus a small regional player. I want to do this and this and this and this, and you can't do that at somebody else's business necessarily, right? So we took it to a certain point. Then I wanted to do it my own, and he said, "That's fine. You be the visionary of that company. I'll come aboard." Uh, Again, no ego guy, so it was like,
yeah. That's
"Okay,
great.
sure, I'd love to have you." I just didn't think that was an option.
Yeah.
That's
So now,
great.
was that was it the same industry though still? And
It's similar. We
okay,
did a little bit differently. The old business, the Mitchell Group, it was called, was more focused on kind of, I would say, legacy IT
hmm,
world, and HireCloud was built on more at the time modern, sexy, cool tech, right? And this was like more internet focused, more
yeah,
mobile. Now it's AI, but that's at the time. Legacy was the more enterprise kind of ERPs and SAP and this kind of stuff that we left behind.
got it. Interesting. Very cool.
Would you say that like typical growing pains in a startup you actually felt when you joined Jeff's company first, and that your first year was less painful because of that?
I mean, the good news was I was an entrepreneur, right? So you're insulated from the massive risks you take. Uh, when you go start something from scratch. So when you're not starting from scratch, my focus was, how can I improve things? And even as an employee, people say, "Well, it's not my company. I would, what? I have no power." I didn't treat it like that. I treated it as if it was my company. Hence why I became an owner and it became my company. Right? Is everything? I was like, "We don't have a website. What era do you live in?" So I went and created a website. I was like, "Man, the furniture in this place is trash." I went and bought furniture. I didn't ask for permission, right? The headphones were old and the technology was bad, and so I went and did all those things. Um, because I needed it to be proud and I needed it to be functional. I needed to do those things. But we had business. So that's the good news, right? I actually even rebuilt that, right? I didn't like the business we had. So I went out and got better business. And I didn't like unnecessarily the people we had. They were good people, but they just weren't that great. So I was like, I think it's time to get new people. And so this was, I treated it as if it was mine and it became mine. Starting HireCloud was a lot more, it was a little bit different, right? Because we kind of had to start from scratch.
Right. Which is, again, the history of, I guess, brave moves for you have paid off, pretty well. I am curious, the role that you were in when you left your corporate job to move over, and work with, is it Jeff, you said?
Yes,
What was the role that you left? And then what was technically the role that you came into?
that's a great question. So I was a senior director of operations at Kaplan, and I stepped into it's a small entrepreneurial company, so there was no like titles or
Yeah.
anything, right? I basically came in to build business, to build a team, to rebuild his business. But I mean, it was in a recruiting function, right?
Right. Okay.
It was very focused on doing the business and driving revenue through the recruiting function, the executive search function. The problem was, again, there was so many things working against us. Uh, you know, Clients that weren't good, clients that didn't care. They didn't, we were like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I was like, this is weird, right? It doesn't seem right. Being outside of the industry was actually very helpful because I was like, this is odd. This doesn't seem right, you
Yeah.
know?
It's interesting too. And it sounds like, again, back to what you said when you were this, young, brash guy coming in and being like, we're doing it differently. There is this thing where, somebody who can come in with that mentality, it can be great when it works out okay.
Yeah.
It's like, but I think that there's this other key thing you were doing that to me, the mixture of these is super valuable. Is you also came in with this owner mentality. All those things that you said, some of them, might feel small, but it's the idea that you're looking at it from a viewpoint of no, I'm looking at where I'm at now as we're growing this. Like you see it as an extension of you. You were treating it that way. And I think that's why you're like, I can see how we can get to where we need to go, but I need to know that I can move, full speed ahead towards it. And kudos on Jeff for acknowledging too that he took the business probably to where it was going to get because, and you could see what you developed with him later, which is again also says a lot about your character when later on he's like, "Hey, where are we going now?" It's like the teacher, if you will, or the student becomes the teacher, or however you want
Yeah.
to say it. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
It was a very interesting combination, I'm not gonna lie. It was a rare and weird combination. I mean, it was often people would say, I don't get it. I don't see you. How does this where is it work?" And I'm like, "Look, don't worry about it, right? There's respect and different styles, but we still always take care of people. We don't we don't talk about anybody in the wrong way. We don't do anything wrong. We always do the right thing and the rest just falls into place. We just do it differently. And we have different functions within the business. We figured it out. Now there was bumps in the road with that as well until we figured out genuine roles, but we can get into that
When you started HireCloud and Jeff joined you, was the first business shut down or did that still continue?
Look at it as almost it was ingested into the new company HireCloud, right?
Got it.
It was we took one employee who worked for us in Arizona remotely part time and said, "You have to move up here full time. Jeff and I are starting HireCloud, and we need your maturity and your know how, and we need it here. We're building a big office. We're starting to hire. We need you." And Jackie had been with Jeff for many years, and we knew her. We trusted her. We needed her to kind of be the grown up in the room and to be the payroll and the HR and the administration and the accounts payable, accounts receivable, like you name it, she did
Yeah.
it. So we're like,
Nice.
okay, no more of this. I mean, we never forget. She said, "Are you saying?" And she wanted us to say yes. "Are you saying if I don't come back that I will be fired?" And we said yes. Because she needed to be able to tell her parents, if I don't go do this, I'm gonna get fired.
Oh wow.
Because she was there to support her brothers at the restaurant, but she actually wanted to do what we were doing.
And with that ingestion of the previous company into HireCloud, does that mean that on day one you guys started with customers or you started with zero customers on day one?
That's a great question. I don't know if you've ever read the book 10x is easier than 2x. You ever read that
I
book?
have. I read
Yeah,
it.
it's
Yeah.
a great book, right,
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah.
the way you got to look at it is you got to let go of 80% of everything you do, and 80% of customers potentially, and 80% of employees potentially, and 80. So we kind of did that, right? We started over with a little bit of stuff moving over, um, just because we liked 20% of the stuff, and so
Yeah.
that's what we moved over. And yes, it still was a little bit of an adjustment period. We couldn't just say, okay, all is well, nothing changed. We still had to have a little bit of a procurement contract resolution scenario, but
Mhm.
we had something to start with. You're right. It wasn't from zero. We didn't necessarily have the 0 to 1 problem. We had the 1 to 10 problem.
Got it. So, can you walk us through the first 6 to 12 months? Like, how did you guys start to fill up your pipeline with customers?
We did it through mushrooming, and with existing clients. So like, I had this one really great director of engineering. His name's Carlos. So hopefully he knows this because he played a huge factor in my career. He was good, and he was like, dude, you know your shit. I like working with you. And then so I did good business with him. And then he said, hey, I'm gonna introduce you to another director, but don't forget, I'm still the priority. You gotta take care of me. This is me to this great guy, Cormac, who I still, every time I go to San Francisco, I still go grab dinner with him. And so he introduced me to Cormac, and he introduces me to Eddie, and Eddie introduces me to da 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 da. Da. And then what ended up happening is s- I worked with all of those guys, and then they would introduce me independently into different companies. And then what would happen is they would then eventually leave those companies, that original company, and they would go to new companies, right? So so eHarmony would become Edmunds and Open Table and Sony PlayStation and this and that and this. And then we would do the same mushrooming at those companies. And so that's really how we did it, right? We didn't really have a great like business development strategy. We weren't like these amazing hunters of business, those guys that are so good at like hounding you down and getting you, in the door. It wasn't really our strength. Our strength was just building relationships, delivering great service, and then hopefully organically mushrooming into more and more and more. I wish we did more asking, to be honest with you, because every time I would ask, I would get more referrals. But I had this weird attitude that like, look, if they appreciate it, they would refer it anyway. So I just
Yeah.
got to do my job, and the rest will take care of itself. I mean, to a point, that's nice, but I think we could have grown even faster, to be honest.
So again, making sure I'm following here because mushrooming is a new term for me when you say it. But so you basically there's these different relationships that you had developed. Turns out that your solution where they were at was a great solution, and then when they ended up going over to another company, they'd be like, "We know this guy, or we know
Yes.
this great solution."
Yes.
And then that introduced, and once you're introduced to places like that, you become a bit more sticky, or you maintain those clients, generally speaking, while those.
You scale within the company itself, right? Because basically, think of the service. There's two sides of our service, I guess, to simplify it. We have our kind of headhunting, executive search, recruiting service, and then we have our consulting, business, which is we have our own engineers that we deploy in companies, right? Like similar to I think Arten's business, more of a, I mean, that part of the business. So what we would do is we would work with one director to build and scale his team, let's say. But then he had a director who had the same issue, and he would say, "Hey, you got to use these guys; they're good." And so first we would mushroom within the company itself, and then you would become kind of famous within that company, and then every department's using you within tech and product.
Yeah. Okay.
Then they're referring you to random colleagues in the industry. That's its own engine. And then they eventually leave. So I kept those companies as clients, but then followed those guys to the new clients.
Right. Okay. Interesting. I hadn't even thought about that approach, but it makes perfect sense because
Yeah.
I've seen it now that you've put a name on it. So
Right. And wasn't strategic. It was like, just do a great freaking job, make sure people feel good, never bullshit anybody ever, take care of people, do more than others, and hopefully it works out. It's like the go giver model, which rarely sounds like it could work, but it 100% works.
And is that still the same strategy deployed today, or do you have a little bit more of like a biz dev or sales team?
No, you almost have to. I mean, the bones of the company and the way it moves, it's still that, right? It's my kind of style. It's my visionary. Is like as the visionary of the company, they still kind of move with that flow, that organic flow. But at that time, it was very founder led business development. Now we have people doing the job, right? We have account executives, we have business development managers, we have, full desk recruiters that go out and get to that business. But then, yes, we still treat it the same way. We still solve problems the same way. Is like, hey, take care of it. I know short term this is going to hurt, but I don't think he's a great fit there. Push him away from this. He should take that other job, which in a short term basis is the stupidest thing, right? Because you're like, you're asking me to walk away, boss. You're asking me to walk away from $60,000 of revenue. I'm like, trust me, one day it'll come back tenfold. They're like, oh, sure. And then they get the call from that VP and say, hey, man, you were the only person that recommended me to away from this situation. Well, I'm scaling my team here. Let's go. And it's all of a sudden you got some 25-year-old kid who's got some random company that no one can get into. Is like, how the hell did you get into this company? Just did this weird thing. We call it like pattern interrupt, where it's like, don't do what everybody else would do. Do it differently,
Makes sense.
Earlier, I touched on kind of this organic, you build a relationship there, the referral or the introductions come. Obviously, you're really touching on relationship building. Um, and, this question might be, some people might find uncomfortable to answer because you basically are tapping yourself on the shoulder. But I'm curious, what would you say your natural strengths or learned strength are in the relationship building that made you so good at it that people took on a liking to you and said, I like this guy. You should meet this person too.
I think I don't know if it's nature or nurture, but like great question asking is a lost art, right? Because especially back then, the way that people would pitch their service is they would pitch their service. They would have collateral and they would have, presentations and PDFs and things like that. And I never had that, right? And I didn't even know that I needed it or should have had it. And so I would show up to meetings and I would just ask a ton of questions. And I was prepared and I had good questions because I was naturally curious and I wanted to know what problem that Michael and Arden are trying to solve, not what my solution is, right? Just like that whole like don't fall in love with the your solution, fall in love with the problem. I guess if I can look back, I never actually thought about this specific question. If I look back, it was that. I think people are like, wow, that's a damn good question. No one asks these questions, right? Because the questions they want to know are obvious crap. And I'm like, I'll get to those questions. But then even those obvious things, I'll go 2 layers deeper. So I know why and this and that. And they use that um to really create kind of a moat where nobody else would do that. Later on, yeah, we can have collateral and all that stuff. Now our team has all of those things, but we don't need it, and I want them to depend on that. You don't need a pitch deck. You don't need a presentation. Just show up and ask a bunch of questions. Now I think you need to be an expert in what that other company does, but you still should be asking questions to truly understand.
Did you have like you know, 2, 3, 4 questions in your back pocket that you use because you saw that it was actually those questions create a lot of positive engagement, so you just repurpose them?
Um, I mean, in general, it wasn't questions. It was like it was concepts. It's like one, I wanted to know the stakeholders and the actual pain that they were dealing with day to day on a personal level. Two, I wanted to know like if this works, what's the benefit to you? And also is like, why should this person? I'm gonna go and headhunt someone amazing at already a good job. That's the one you want. Why would he or she leave that to come here? If you can't answer that question, you can't have a star, right? You can have someone solid, decent, average. You can have someone that that's on the market, that's fine. But if you want a superstar, well, what's in it for him? What's in it for her? Like, why would she leave this relationship with a good employer, good manager, unless it's better, substantially better? And I think that, again, always made people like, huh, interesting. And then whatever they say, I'd go deeper. Right? That's really what it is. It's not the question, is the follow-up questions and the thoroughness of the next level of questioning that really gets you the answer. It's like the 5 whys game.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. I still remember for me too, and I had a mentor where I went into that room with, and I was so eager to get across the thing that I had spent time working on that, he ended up slowing me down and being like, whoa, whoa, wait a minute here. It's like, um, have you even asked the questions? Do you understand, exactly what it is? And it was a great point, because at that point I'm like, no, I just wanted to show up showing that I was prepared and eager in that. But to that point, just answering or asking a few of these key questions ended up driving the conversation a completely different way. It turned out what I built was not even worthwhile because that's not where it went. But the conversation still led to the outcome and output that they were looking for. So I think a lot of people, yeah, we have a tendency to do that sometimes because we just don't want to look bad or unprepared, but the right questions go a long way.
And also genuine relationship building and doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff. Like, some people build relationships, but they're doing it so they can get something. If you just scratch that and just forget that, you just do stuff. I would do stuff for people as either a thank you or for the hell of it, with zero expectations. It sounds so basic, but in business, we don't apply those. As humans, we don't even apply that. Right? It's tick for tack. And if you just remove that out of your life, one, you're just a happier person. Two, if you now apply it to business, it's insane what you get, but without asking for anything. It's just like, just do stuff.
I remember reading Tony Hsieh's book,
Delivering happiness.
Delivering Happiness. And it was when it first published. And he says something in that book that really stuck with me. And then I've taken it with me to now and probably to the rest of my life. And he said around relationship building, the way he approached it was he always, tried to build a relationship, genuine, helping without expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
But what he realized was that on average, it took about 5 years for him to find out why that person was put in his life.
Wow.
And he said, "Oh, so I've done a similar thing," and I'm like, "Wow, it actually does work." Because I definitely just randomly make a connection, someone like you,
Yeah.
and then the universe, if you're religious, God, whatever, it takes time to eventually tell you why that person's in your life, and that stuck with me, and I've definitely used that approach and it's been successful so far.
Dead on. Dead on.
Yeah.
And if you look at a short window of life, you'll never get those benefits. You're like, I tried what you said, it didn't work, so I've moved on from that strategy, that tactic. It's like, no,
Yeah.
it's not a strategy or a tactic. It's a way of life. It's a way to think. You know what I mean? It's like, is I worked out for 3 days and I'm not ripped. It's like, no, you're not going to be ripped.
Takes 4 days.
Possibly. Yeah, it takes 4 days. Like, it's not going to happen, man. Like, you got
Yeah.
to change your entire lifestyle and your mindset. And so it's hard to explain and teach. Either the person's that mentality or they're not, you know?
Yeah. Um, Slight pivot. So, you know, I spent almost 20 years at Disney in a big corporate machine. Michael spent about 14, 15 at Disney, another 3, 4 at Netflix. So combined, both of us spent 40 years in large corporations. And things are done very differently. And when you're there for a long, even if you're in that world for 1 to 2 years, you build up habits and habits of how things work in a big environment where there are budgets, but it's not it's not like, you know, the sky is falling if something breaks. There's always people to lean on to do things. Uh, so when we left the corporate world, at least I know for me, there was a lot of unlearning I had to do to
Mhm.
say, okay, well, I can't call an assistant to do this. I mean, as a simple example, I can't call an assistant to do this. I got to learn how to do this myself. What were things that you had to unlearn as you made your transition from your 9 to 5 to Jeff's company and then to HireCloud?
Ooh, I had to learn insane resilience, right? Insane resilience. Had to learn, like you said, to work without any resources. Like, it was the weirdest thing. I went from this beautiful office and multiple directors and all the staff to like, what do you got? Does your phone work, man? Like, what is happening? What is
To this
you?
day, I still look to a financial analyst and I'm like, come on, AI, please get a little bit further so I could just talk to you and get the reports I need. Because when I try to build these things on my own, give me 2 days to build something somebody else would have done in 5 minutes.
Exactly. And everything's out the door now. None of those things anyone's doing for you.
Yeah.
So like being resilient, being really resourceful, uh, you know, not depending on anyone or anything, can't depend on a brand anymore. I mean, Netflix, Disney, I mean, that's some of the biggest brands in the world, right? That you can always lean on. And I think people underestimate how much that helped, and they overestimate what they did for those organizations, if I could be honest, right? And so, like, we all do it. It's a human thing to do. I mean, I still see it in my own company today, right? Wonderful people, but they overestimate, and underestimate how they were helped in certain things, and that's okay. But, like, knowing that you don't have that anymore, that no one knows you, your brand, no one gives a shit, you have no resources, nothing to send them. So what the hell do you actually have? Like, you have yourself, and you have the ability to, like, uh, care deeply about someone's problem and genuinely try to find a solution and do more than everyone else could do, is willing to do. That's it. As far as unlearning, what I learned, guys, is that I had worked in big companies most of my life, and I was a young guy, so we're talking 8 years, but still, like,
It's a good amount of time.
yeah, a good amount of time at that age. I mean, I had been in leadership roles at multiple large companies, Rite Aid, LAUSD, Kaplan. Um, we had acquired a company called Score. It was a startup, and so, like, you don't know who you are until you leave that industry, and you go, "Oh my god, I can fly at a smaller company." So sometimes you're a big company person and you will never be able to survive at a small company or on your own. And sometimes you're a small company person, a startup person, a entrepreneur stuck in a big company. You just don't know it, right? And you have these like barriers now why you can't leave that and never find out.
When you were originally, made the decision that you were going to leave, were you mainly searching for basically just another job, for lack of a better way to put it, or were you thinking at that time of starting your own thing?
That's a really good question. I mean, I knew that one day I would have my own business. I didn't know what kind of business. I didn't have any resources to be able to start a business, to be honest with you, at that time. I fell into the like, I think it's time to move on. Um, and my company was great. They were like, hold up. Okay. I think you'll like Charles. You get to know him. I'm like, nah, I've already gotten to know him. I don't like him, And they were like, okay, fine. We'll have you connect with this guy, Ray, in San Diego. I think you'll really like him. I'm like, okay, that's fair. I drive all the way to San Diego with my wife, come back in the car. She's like, how did it go? I said, nah, so uninspiring. Let's go to the beach. I'm like, no, we're not doing this. And so they tried, right? But I just was uninspired. So what happened is I just fell being in the industry. I fell into like executive search firms just getting me into the next for profit leadership role, right? It was like kind of ed tech type of companies, or just straight out educational companies. You just fall into the like, okay, this is what's presented. And I would go meet these companies. They were great and they had good salaries and good benefits and nice offices. Yet I walk into a clunky, funky, smelly little office with nothing. And I'm like, yeah, this feels right. Like, what? What are you doing? Like, it made no logical sense. I look back and it's like it made no logical sense. What the hell was
Yeah.
I thinking? You know?
Yeah, but I think it is interesting, as you said, I assume at that point, again, the relationship when you walked into these other places with Ray, it didn't feel right. With Jeff, obviously something felt right. And then at the same time, it sounds like it was a really good step because a lot of people think about entrepreneurship, but sometimes when you go straight from your corporate, where you were doing kind of what Arton described before of this job that was kind of within these confines is what you did,
Yes.
it's your chances of success might be lower, and the fear, or rather the lack of belief in yourself, might not be there either because you haven't really done that. But the minute you jump into basically what is a little bit more of a startup kind of, a smaller company for you at that point, it, I think, opens the mind up. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but all of a sudden now you start realizing that eventually you do say, dude, I could do this on my own. Why am I not doing this? And not because you couldn't have stayed the path you did, but at that point now you're just like, what's the next thing that you want to prove to yourself? I think is
Yeah.
probably what a big piece of it is that way.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting path.
It's dead on. Like, people sometimes feel like they need to be entrepreneurs. You don't need to be an entrepreneur. One, you could stay in your corporate job and do a great job and live a damn good life forever. Being an entrepreneur is one of the most difficult things in the world. Um, I mean, the part we didn't even talk about is as soon as like a year in, we're in this, ass deep in this recession, and my wife's like, "Hey, I'm pregnant." So I'm like, "Great." So now I have no salary, no benefits,
Uh,
and we have a baby. That's amazing. But that was the inspiration to just keep going, right? This burning this boat, to burning this ship, whatever you call it, is like it's like I had to make a decision right away. Is it here or there? Um, and not everybody has to go the entrepreneurial sh shop. One way you could do it is the intrapreneurial, right? There's people that can't do corporate, but they don't wanna just work just like, they don't wanna be entrepreneurs, they don't wanna corporate. Just go and help a company grow, and you will create your own damn positions, and I mean, you'll create whatever you need to create, and every time you get bored, create something new. Every time you have a problem, go and hire for it, and if you're surrounded by the right visionary or the right person, like, man, like the ceiling, there's no ceiling. You could do whatever you want, as long as you're helping the company grow. It can't just be wishy-washy every time you get bored, you wanna try something new. It's like, no, you gotta force that company to grow. That's how you make all the money you want. You want equity, go and get it. You wanna scale, figure it out. There's gaps in why you can't scale, go, fill those gaps, you know?
Completely makes sense. Do you have a soft spot in your heart when you see those type of individuals and you're hiring yourself for your own company?
Um, yes and no, because people don't know what they want. Right? You get a lot of people that are like 1 foot out the door mindset, um, and those people are the worst, right? Because they never wanna give it their all. They always wanna leave a little bit something outside for themselves for the future, right? And it's not the way. Let me overly protect certain things so that I can then I don't wanna ask favors now, I wanna wait until only use those favors when I'm on my own. I'll only do these things because now it's on, I'm on my no, 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 you give it your all for every team you play for, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. Yeah, it is always an interesting thing, thinking about companies that we work for, and there was clear differences I even saw between, Disney and Netflix and the type of people that were hired there. Netflix did lean heavily into like people would come into roles there that were manager roles, and elsewhere they were a president of a company. Like in
Mhm.
other words, they came in, but they also pay everything else was also acknowledging that we know that we're gonna just let you loose and you're gonna do great. I know some things have changed up with the culture a little bit there, but there was this acknowledgement that Reed had that I really appreciated there when it came to their approach of hire the best people, more entrepreneurial, kind of as you described there, and let them loose, focusing
100%.
in that sort of way, so
100%, and see stuff in them that no one else sees. I had
yeah,
a guy, he was phenomenal, and he wasn't a good manager, but I didn't care. Like, maybe that was a mistake, but I was like, "Dude, you're a phenomenal individual contributor. I'm gonna make you a team lead." He's like, "Okay, thanks." And then he would do, like, his best with those team, and I was like, "Dude, you should be a manager. And he was like, you sure? I don't think. Yeah. I'm like, don't worry about it. You'll figure it out. And then I made him a manager. Dude, he was at one point, he was like a director or senior director here, made a ton of money, kicked ass for us, kicked ass for himself. And he just built like his own role here, and he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And now I have someone else doing that, and equity in the company and just winning, and it's like, and look, it has to be that type of environment,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I was afraid where that was going to go, though. Sometimes the people get promoted into those roles, they can't leave people, and then suddenly it's like, oh, they
There was
weren't
a little
successful
bit of
for that.
that. There
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a little bit of that where I was blind to the fact that like he wasn't an amazing people manager. He wasn't a bad people manager. He was a good guy. It
yeah,
just he was a little impatient and but to me I knew that he was good inside and he worked his ass off and he made the best of it. And
yeah.
had he really wanted to be a great manager, he would have been a great manager. He's one of the smartest guys I knew. It's
Yeah.
just he chose not to want to be a great manager. It just
Got it.
wasn't his thing. He
Yeah.
wanted to be like an architect, right? I was like, "Okay, it's fine."
um, let's talk AI. How's AI shaping how you run your company and how you're actually serving and helping clients?
Another great question. So, twofold. I would say about 20-30% of our business now is building AI teams.
Oh, well.
Um, Data science, machine learning, uh, a little bit of robotics, computer vision, all these things. I mean, we've been doing it for quite a few years, right? We were doing that pre AI,
Yeah.
meaning like what we know of ChatGPT and LLM's world, right? It's
Yeah.
we were doing it pre that. I mean, data science we've been doing for 12 years,
And
right?
when you say doing it, is that for other companies? Meaning
For
you're
other
using your staff?
companies.
Okay, yep, got it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So building data science teams and machine learning and natural language processing guys and
Yeah.
things like these. It's just now it's become the norm.
Yeah.
So it's always been a part of it, but if it was 10 to 15%, now it's, let's say 35%. That's probably more accurate. Probably about one third of our roles are related to something like that. As far as what we're doing for the company, I have a chief technology officer. You don't know too many tech recruiting firms that have their own CTO. And you know him, Martin. I think you know Gevik, right?
Yes, I know.
Small world. And that was, by the way, a freaky, random thing. Like my wife had this dumb idea. I was barbecuing and I was like, man, I'm stressed out. I have all of a sudden all this business. I don't know who to hire for it. I might hire a contract recruiter. She's like, how about Gevik? I'm like, what? Gevik's a VP of engineering. What the hell are you talking about? That's the stupidest idea ever. And she's like, I don't know. Is it? I'm like, wait a minute. So that job failed for him. Like I was going to use him as interviewing, but along the way, I created this job for him and he's been rocking for us. But what we're doing is we're using it for AI. We're building AI for efficiency measures, making our people a lot more capable, a
Yeah.
lot faster, less manual crap that was taking so much time and resources away. Um, and it was done by people that weren't happy doing it, right? Just the small roles weren't even like great for them, where we feel bad that, oh, we took that part of their job away. And we just make our people do what they're great at, right? Recruiters aren't great at note taking and writing stuff down or documentation. They're great at talking to people and connecting the dots. So how do we implement Gong? But then how do we build the AI to get those notes and create the job description and all these things? And so that's what we're doing. And we're getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And we're building a platform I can't talk about publicly, but there's all kinds of cool stuff that's coming. But it's all about efficiency. Is how do we do more with less?
As a business owner, what's your take on what type of jobs is this new age AI taking away?
Really basic jobs that no one was ever happy doing, right? Jobs like that are obviously not going to be around. Really, unfortunately, like this part sucks. Junior people that did like let's say analysts, right? Uh, there's a certain level of someone needed to do that legwork, and it's just done for you now, right? Like whatever LLM you use, it could be done. Most of this stuff could be done, which sucks for our kids who are one day going to be those people that need that basic job, right? It's not really, those aren't needed. Um, I think that's it. Like really junior jobs, I think, are in major jeopardy. And I think really basic, unnecessary, not unnecessary, but easy things to offload and automate an I think those jobs will be gone soon.
It has made me wonder a little bit of, there still will have to be something that is an entry level job, but a lot of these entry level jobs are going away. So technically, I guess, just moves the entry level job to something more complex. And maybe that changes the education of how you need to prepare, or the fact that you're going to need more onboarding because entry level is now like, I, I haven't quite wrapped my head around what that's going to look like in the future, but I just got to assume that people who now come in will come in with more critical thinking, know how to use these AI tools for some of those things that are required. But it's still interesting because I don't think there's been enough of a shift of what that looks like now within colleges. Although I did just hear something, I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly in China, they're going to start having, this could have just been something on social media that's completely wrong, by the way, so don't hold me to it. But that, like, as with the glasses and like the AR and the being able to learn in this sort of way, because that's, coming fast and furious too, that'll be like having a laptop in school today, and that's what they're going to start, having as part of the learning curriculum there. Because I do think adapting to the new ways of learning is a key piece of, then when you step into that role,
Mhm.
entry level is now somebody who's got more knowledge than your average person today is probably on leveraging the LLMs and the AI tools.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you got a great point. And on the flip side, I think people that are refusing to adopt these tools are also I think are in trouble, because without it, they're going to look 10 times more
Totally.
inefficient. Like, I'll give you a simple thing, right? There's someone at every company that just looks through contracts, right? And it's a cumbersome job. They have to print out a 42-page agreement, and they have to read it. They have to highlight a few factors, and they have to just take some notes, and they have to go into someone's office and say, "Hey, sorry it took me 4 days. I've been
Right.
busy. Here's what it is. When do you want to discuss this?" And then you have to have a meeting and back and forth. And they say, "Hey, do you mind sending this, in an email?" "Okay, can I get back to you on Friday with this?" Is like, okay, a week has gone by, right? Or I can just shove it into an agent that says,
That's
"Look
it.
out for these things. Here's the factors. Do you want me to negotiate this for you?" "Yes, please." And then
Right.
it's like, okay, and then you feed the response back. the re- that 1 minute, 10-minute exercise will eliminate that other person. Now, if that other
Yeah.
person can do the same and offload that for you, great. Then they've got a place. They just have to do more,
Right. Yeah.
right? That's, I think, the two areas, the bookends that are in trouble. It's this really junior, just I just need to physically do stuff, and really older, not older, but like folks that are just refuse to kind of do
Yeah.
this. It's
I've
gonna be
got a
tough.
couple of friends who fall into that category, and they're still like anti-AI because either on one hand they're like, no, it's going to take away, people's like, ability to do work on their own, or the other side of it is, it's Terminator 2 or Terminator and the Matrix coming their way. So, but I mean, there may be an increase. Like, I joke about this, but I actually somewhat mean it, in like Amish communities, because I do think there's a lot of people who are kind of like, you know what, we're going to go to these no technology zones, or at least no advanced ones that are gonna, but my way of looking at it is, look, the robots, they're gonna come for you no matter where you're at.
Either
That's
way,
yeah,
you might as
exactly.
well be a part of the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
And that's part of another thing that I subscribe to is like all of our industries are being disrupted. There's no doubt about it. Like, we can't pretend. Um, so I rather disrupt my own business, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that's what I'm doing. I'm finding ways to disrupt my own business to create either a moat or just create the competition myself.
Yeah, I love it.
Speaking of disruption, and again, this was a social media thing, so don't hold me to it. I don't know if it was true, but it was,
In the future, we really won't know if it's true because
yeah,
it was
you don't
generated
know.
by
Fake
a
news.
But
AI.
it was basically promoting a product that looked like a pen, and it was for like college students where they're taking a test, but the pen is not actually a written pen. It has a camera at the edge, and you just swipe it over the picture, over the whatever text is the questions, and then had a very tiny LCD screen where apparently it was actually feeding that question to ChatGPT, and you get the answer right on your pen. I was like,
That's
oh my
incredible.
God, wait, where was this when I was taking test?
Right? You would have had no brain, man. These
Yeah,
kids will
Yeah.
not need to
yeah.
use their brain
But
at
yeah,
all.
education being disrupted.
You know,
Yeah.
this is happening, guys, in interviews right now. So I was at my son's like Boy Scouts thing, and somebody told me about this. So there's all these fake candidates. You know about these, right? It's a North Korean thing. It's like a bunch of thousands of fake candidates, and they take 5, 10, 15 jobs each. They're brilliant. They interview well. Some of them are actually technical, but none of them actually work. I mean, Art, and you probably know about this being in the business, but long story short, to catch them, because they're using AI for the interviews, both the fake candidates, I'm assuming the real ones too. Somebody asked a fake question that had a Chat GPT or whatever LLM answer. And the question is bullshit. It's not an actual question that has an actual answer, but it does according to ChatGPT. And they watch these people answer these questions as a confirmation that that's what they were doing.
Oh, wow.
Because
That's
a
pretty
normal
crazy.
person would say, "That's weird. Like
Weird.
that, no, I can't. No, I
Yeah,
don't
but
think
didn't
there's an
answer it.
answer to this." Or like, "I'm stumped, man. You
So
got me. Like, I don't
yeah.
know." But someone that's reading something insane or hearing it has the answer to a fake question that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
There
it's a
was
cat and mouse game. I think this is going to continue to happen in schools, in colleges, in interviews, and cat and mouse. And then the new technology comes out to
Wow.
combat that. Just like fraud, right? Somebody comes up with something, and someone finds a way to battle it, and then they. It's the same thing, I think, with
Yeah, I was
That's
trying to look
fascinating.
for it, but I don't know where it is now, but I just heard of it, and the software's got a name that basically almost sounds like it's, has to do with cheating, but literally he developed it, uh, to help people get jobs where they're leveraging AI, so on the SIM, when they're having the conversation, you have basically a bot, LLM, whatever you wanna say,
yeah,
sitting there, listening to the conversation and telling them the right answers back. So as long as you're getting good at how you do that, now here's the irony to it. And by the way that he blew up and did it is he ended up forget if it was Amazon or somewhere else. He got hired, might have been Microsoft. He got hired with the job, and then afterwards he let them know. By the way, I use the software to do that. And the reason he let them know is because the PR he got from that's now made his software go crazy because he's
yeah,
just pursuing that as his full-time business now.
sure,
But what's interesting about it though, and he points out, and I do love this, it's so true. It's like companies are like, we want you to be, AI savvy, but it's like, but hold on, don't use it against us. There's this fine balance. They want you to use it everywhere else in the job, or at least, that's leading more and more, but just not to get the job. And it's this
yeah.
really interesting, yeah,
Well,
balance.
you shouldn't. I mean, look, on the employer side, some of the questions are ridiculous too. I mean, if you ever seen that meme where it's like the interview and the job, and it's like a dinosaur, and then there's like Barney. There's a certain point where you tell a company, look, man, look, and we do this with our clients. Take it easy. Like, you're not solving world hunger or cancer. Like,
Yeah.
you're hiring engineers, man. Like, take it easy, right? No one needs someone that smart. You know, I need a guy, the top 5 schools and the top 5 companies and brilliant culturally, has built a startup that's also, it's like, take it easy. It's not that
Mhm.
serious. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, leave a little bit for the imagination. Let them figure stuff out.
Well, and the interesting balance with it is that, well, we're not very far from the future, at least I think, where there is the chip in your head, or you will have direct access to it. If it's not that, it's your glasses, it's your whatever it is, in a way that allows somebody that. So doesn't matter if that person knows how to move the room. In other words, engage with the human still, have the right answer, ask the right questions, which is key to getting to the right answer. Like, I don't know, I start wondering, and if their output is still good, does whether or not they're using, it's not like, I know there's a situation with the guy out there who has like, 5 jobs at once and he wasn't doing any of them well, and somehow somebody was doing it. But if there is a guy who has 5 jobs at once and he's doing them all really well because he's figured out how to deliver really well against this, I guess I look at it sometimes, I'm like, I don't care personally how they did that, as long as when they're in the company, they're not going to do anything to get the company in trouble. And, people can make that connection, be like, well, if they're dishonest there, they're going to be, it's like, look, it's, if there's a soda sitting in the fridge, somebody might take the last soda, even though it wasn't theirs. It doesn't mean that they're a criminal, if you will. So,
Michael, are you
These guys
saying,
are criminals.
yeah, like Michael, you were
Yeah.
saying you want to hire actors going forward?
yeah, exactly. Actually, that's a really good point. Maybe they are going to be, maybe that's the future already with Hollywood and the rewriting of that. And actors want that. Actors are going to move into this role where they just show up at companies as experts. I forget, Walter Goggins has his Goggins goggle glasses is like the business he has. And I keep getting these ads all the time for it. And his big things there is he goes, actors, we're not even really experts. And he walks around a crime scene and he says a few words and he's like, I don't even know what that meant. So yes, maybe we're not that far off from that being the future.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Avidas, what's next for HireCloud? Like, where do you see the company going? Where would you like it to go?
That's a great question. For us, we're still focused on the core business, scaling the core business. Last year, we brought a go-to-market business to our business, right? We hired a guy and a small team to lead our go-to-market. So more sales executives, growth executives, marketing executives. That's been good. So we're going to scale that. Our consulting business has been doing pretty well. We'd like to 10x that. It's quite challenging of a goal. I think I have to build a specific team to only do that. I think that's a big one for us. And keep building AI capabilities so we can do it with this great team we have and not have to settle for average talent. Historically, that's been a big problem for me is I hire people, and if they're decent people and I like them, I tend not to be ruthless. Good news is my director, our senior director, is a little more ruthless than me and very systematic, and now
Balance.
it's on her to make those decisions. But still, the core of the company is human, right? And we care
Mhm.
about our people, and we don't throw them out the window when they're failing. But in tough times, it's you need to sometimes, right? Like I pride myself as no layoffs ever. We've never had a layoff. The problem is 2 years ago, might have made sense to lay off our lowest producers, but instead
True.
we forced our to try to fix them, and it's like it's not going to happen, right? There was reasons why these smart people weren't doing well. It wasn't because they weren't smart. So I think doing it with technologies, you could allow the existing people to do more with less, right? And
Yeah.
that's really where the future is.
And just what you'd said on there, just to build on it is really interesting because again, saw the different approaches at different companies. Disney was definitely that company who what would happen is they wouldn't like it was almost hard when you needed to lay somebody off there because they're like, okay, they got to dot their I's, cross their T's. They've been like sued too many times for different reasons. So they're
Yes.
like, okay. And when they're a company of 100,000, that's even more of a chance to get
Oh
sued.
yeah.
So in that scenario, it's like, yeah, you generally it was at the time of layoffs where it was kind of that point where people are like, okay, and not always. Again, obviously layoffs can have a different impact when you're
Sure.
merging companies, things can happen. Whereas Netflix approach was pretty much like almost always performing the keepers test. Like in a weekly meeting, it wasn't abnormal for somebody to be like, how am I doing? Am I performing well? And if somebody was like, I'm going to leave and go to another company, it was the keepers test to be like, would you pay them to stay here based on what they're going to get paid at the other role? Yes, pay them that. If not, then say goodbye to them now because
Yeah.
they're not that. So I think it's always interesting when you do look at those different,
I like
philosophies.
Netflix model much better, right? Like Disney, I think their decisions was more political and fear-based,
Right.
right? For me, it was like, layoffs are cowardly. Like, help people improve or help them up or help them out.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of time
It
and
does.
energy away from your A players. You're spending
Exactly.
so much time on people that don't necessarily want to win,
Yeah.
and you're taken away from
And
those A and B players. So it's like,
absolutely.
no, sometimes a layoff is fine, and
And
just do it with humanely
right.
and communicate and be transparent. That's why I like Netflix's
Yeah.
model. Take care of your people before someone else does, right? Take care of
Yep.
them before they have to interview. Promote them before they ask. Give them raises whether they ask or not. I mean, we had someone in a different country because we're a small global company, and they asked my director. They said, "Hey, it's been a year in our in this country. you expect a 3%, we expect the annual raises, like life, blah, 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 and it's getting expensive here. And we like this person. And my director says, should we do it? I said, no. No, we don't do annual, whatever they're called. And she was like, yeah, but she's really good. I said, yeah, but you didn't understand. Is she performing? So what ended up happening is she got a 7% raise over a 3% raise. But the point was, no, not right now because you asked, but you are performing at a level. You just have to achieve this last goal, and you'll get a much better raise than because it's more expensive now. I have to give
Yeah.
you this raise. It's like, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not our culture. It's a performance culture. So you might get 0, you might get 20, but I can't give you 3% just because life is getting more expensive.
Right.
And my clients don't pay me more because life is more expensive.
Right.
They're trying to pay me
Yeah.
less. They keep trying to pay me less.
That's true, right? That is what they do. Right. But I do think that, and I think that's always great when that there's at least a method, whatever it is in an organization. And I also coach people on that side of helping them as they're trying to advance. And it's like the key is to understand what the rules are, whatever organization you're in. Sometimes it's performance based. Sometimes it is, unfortunately,
Yeah.
that minimum. But even then, nobody wants to go for minimum. In fact, to me, that's sometimes a sign of the individual who's also comfortable and not really pushing, anymore. Not always, but
Yeah.
one of those there. But one of the things I want to say on the Netflix front that was great about what they did, which also gave people a level of dignity even when they were laid off there, because you could still be solid. You're just not, Netflix solid, as they say, sending a
Yeah.
colleague. But they were always big on the idea of, okay, now here's a severance. Thank you so much for your time here. Like,
Yeah.
because they're like, look, this is what's best for both of us. And I think that got them out of that thing that otherwise becomes lawsuit land, whatever else you say, because most people were like pretty happy with that because you couldn't do it anywhere else, and off they went.
Well,
Helped
you're
mitigate it.
freeing that person to pursue something they're going to be potentially better
That's
at.
exactly it.
You know?
Yeah.
And Netflix was great at paying 3 times market, 2 to 3 times market, but would they get 10x engineers,
Yeah.
right?
It's
And
exactly. That's key.
that's how they built their business. Now, whether that's
Exactly.
still the case or not, Netflix is one of the few companies that is not our client. So I
Yeah.
don't know actually internally, but that was their thing, right? Always everybody's a 3 to 10x engineer or
Oh, that's
whatever they
exactly it.
were versus settling for average people.
And I love that, taking it back to the book you were mentioning earlier, 10x, not 2x. Then that is another way to kind of get there, is that if you're thinking about it that way, who are those people who are going to bring that? Because
Absolutely.
even if you pay them double, in fact, they might even mention in that book some of that, but I can't remember that piece of it. But anyhow,
We've talked a lot about HireCloud and what the business does. So if somebody watched or listened to this episode and they're like, I need Avetis to help me build my team, where can they find you?
Great question. LinkedIn is an easy place to find me and my team. HireCloud has its own page. I have my own page. You could easily find me there. Hopefully, we can put it in the notes. I have my own podcast, as you know, and maybe I'll have you, brilliant gentlemen, on mine. It's called the Tech Leaders Playbook, which is really focused on leadership and technology and all that. They can email me, avidas@hirecloud.com, and I have a phenomenal team, and I'm happy to come in and do an audit and see kind of what you're doing that's getting you average talent versus exceptional talent.
nice.
That's great. Well, it's been an amazing conversation. We look forward to more and continue hearing about your HireCloud journey because we're
Appreciate it.
definitely want to see you blow this up. So thank you
Let's
for
go.
spending time with us.
Appreciate you guys. This is a phenomenal interview. Thank you so much for having me. It's an
Thank
honor.
you.
Take care, gentlemen.
Bye-bye.